Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And hey, Scotty's with us today. You're feeling better, huh? You were a little sick last week.
Ooh, a lot sick.
Really?
Yeah.
You think it was COVID?
I'm kind of have a feeling it was.
Yeah, you said something about that, huh? Well, anyway, you're better now.
Yes.
But do you know who Jennifer Lawrence is?
The actress?
Yeah, the actress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know any movies she's been in?
Yeah, like the Hunger Games.
Well, you live in a world that I know very little about, but you're right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, but I kind of stumbled upon her. And I had heard of her. I knew she was an actress, but that's all I knew.
Uh-huh.
And I stumbled upon her in YouTube, and she does these interviews, and she's really funny. Have you seen any
Yeah.
of her interviews?
It's funny because she does interviews on like what you just asked me, which was, do you know, she's asking people, do they know who Jennifer Lawrence is? Have you?
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, it's funny. Super
Yeah,
funny.
she's really funny.
Yeah.
And I think she's my alter ego, because I'm not like that. But when I look back at my life, though, I think there were, like, when I was a kitchen director in the ashram all those years, I was a lot more lighthearted. Now, just trying to run Mount Soma and get everything going and stuff. I think my life is a lot more serious now than it was back then. But anyway, that's still in me. I got a Jennifer Lawrence in me,
Great there. Yeah, she's funny.
Yeah, she's funny. Yeah. Anyway, today I was reading the Shiva Sutras, and I'll tell you, the Brahma Sutras, the Shiva Sutras, incredible. And I started a routine back in the ashram. This was decades ago, of getting up around 2 a.m, and I still do that. But I do it a lot, almost every day now. I do it because of I like to get up, and that's when I like to read Sanskrit and read, the Shiva Sutras and Brahma Sutras. Yoga Vasishta. Yoga Vasishta is great too. I haven't talked about that. Yoga Sutras. But at any rate, I thought, well, there's some verses in the Shiva Sutras. So many of them are just incredible, And there's this one that I liked it so much, I copied it and I posted it in the notes for this podcast at michaelmamas.net. And I actually sent them. I'd like to send things like that almost every day, actually. I send things to Pandit Prasad, and then I'll go to the temple and he and I will talk about it. And it's really wonderful, to do that. He and I both, we really enjoy it. But this one talks about, and the one line in it says, Brahma is known from the Upanishads alone. And when I read that, it was like, wow, that's so great. Because, so here's the deal on it. There, you have the absolute, and then you have this manifest existence, right? But contained within the absolute is everything. I mean, it's all the different worlds, all the different possibilities. It's kind of like on a piano keyboard. You have those notes, and on those notes, you can play an unlimited number of different songs. I guess in that analogy, the keys, each key on the keyboard would correlate to a different letter in the Sanskrit alphabet. But with respect to the Sanskrit alphabet, which notes are played, determines what manifests in existence. But the question comes up: why this universe? Why this world? Why is that pillow in front of me? Why is there a computer screen in front of you So this verse, Brahman is known from the Upanishads alone. To me, it's said so much about that. You know, boy, talking about Jennifer Lawrence, there's this one interview, the one that I really didn't like because it was just kind of serious, but they asked her if she believes in an afterlife, and she said, not really, no. And I mean, so many people don't, Scotty.
Yeah.
You know, but to me, to me, it's not even a matter of belief. It's just so self-evident. And I guess when you meditate regularly, that it becomes more self-evident. So many of the cobwebs of existence just clear over time through meditation. And you know, in physics and science, you know, you have a laboratory, and you can make something known and valid by repeating the experiment in a laboratory. But with respect to consciousness, the laboratory is your own consciousness. And so for another person to repeat if you will, experiment in your own awareness, for them to repeat it for themselves, it's a function of their level of awareness. If it's more or less or whatever, just whatever it is, it is. And so I guess that's a really difficult thing, because when you talk to somebody, you're talking to their level of consciousness. It could be greater level of consciousness than yours. It could be a lesser level of consciousness than yours. But it is what it is, you know. And I guess it comes down then to just accepting people, you know. If somebody has a belief, I mean, you can discuss it, you can debate it, they can provide you with insights, you can provide them with insights. But ultimately, it amounts to, you know, knowledge is structured in consciousness. It's a function of your own level of consciousness. But at any rate, according to the Vedic literature, you know, there's this principle called karma. You know, karma just means action, literally. It's the laws of action. And existence goes on eternally. I talked about the creation and dissolution of manifest world. But just because something, you know, between cycles of manifestation, it doesn't mean that things don't continue. It's a little bit like when we talked about, Lord Krishna's flute. You know, he plays a flute, and if even in physics, there are nodes between vibrations. The flute vibrates here, then there's a stop, then it vibrates and then stop, and then vibrates and then stop. And so there's these pivotal points where there's no motion, but nevertheless, there's something there, right? In Vedic tradition, with respect to consciousness and existence, they would refer to that as memory, smriti, you know? But the idea is, though, that something is still going on. And like that, existence is eternal. It goes on eternally. If there's a period of manifestation, dissolution, manifestation, but in between those periods of manifestation and the next manifestation, there's still existence. And contained within that, and we've talked about this in other ways in other podcasts, but contained within that, then something is continuing even during the unmanifest period. And that's memory, and it's holds information. That's like the gaps between the syllables or the words in Vedic cognition. And those gaps that's where the brahmanas exist. That's the intelligence, the knowledge that exists between the syllables. And so the Veda is really made up not just of the mantras, but also the brahmanas. And that's true of all existence. And so the point is then that with respect to what we're talking to right now, karma, and there's a continuum of karma that carries on. And so now what's that have to do with Brahman, which we've talked about, and the Upanishads? And that Brahman is known from the Upanishads alone. That's an important word there, alone. The Upanishads, they are a Purusheya. They're not of the relative, they're of the absolute. But nevertheless, it's like if you were in the relative viewing the absolute and picking it up on that most subtle level, but still within relativity, that would be an expression of the Upanishads, which is part of Veda, part of Brahmanas. And it's so beautiful, you know. And it's read as almost an introduction to people in the relative. You can look at it this way. Talking about the absolute, talking about the true nature of existence. And so it talks about, you know, the pure absolute, Chaitanya, Paran, Kaivalya. And then it talks about how that field of deep, unbounded silence, eternal no-thingness, nevertheless has intelligence within it. And that starts on the surface to percolate up and becomes those point values which correlate to the alphabet, the Sanskrit alphabet, which was that which structures relative existence. But the thing is, within the absolute, it's all possibilities. It's not just this existence. There's just a finite number of different existences. It's everything. And so what determines why that computer screen is manifesting in front of you, or that pillow over there is manifesting in front of me? What determines that? Well, karma plus prana equals mind. And this is all a projection upon mind. It's what we perceive. It's our world. And so then to experience Brahman, Brahman is everything. So the pillow is part of it. Without relativity, there's no Brahman, because there's no relativity. It's just flat absolute. But in the state of Brahmachetana, the state of enlightenment, that pillow is just what it is, one with God. It is God. You could say it that way, one with God. It is just a pillow. It is the pure absolute. But what determines that the pillow even manifests is the approach to that unbounded, infinite field of all possibilities, source of all possible worlds, and thereby emerging this particular world. Is that making sense, Scotty?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's pretty abstract, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then the question, there's so much more anyway. It's got to come sequentially. Then the question becomes, well, why, Scotty, what are you doing in my world? And what am I doing in your world? Because it all goes through the Atman. It all goes through the self, right? So does that question make sense?
Yeah.
Like in Brahman consciousness, it's all about the Atman. This is all a projection of your own self. I am all of that. And so what's the deal, Scotty? Because you in Brahman consciousness look around and it's all just Scotty. So from that perspective, what am I doing in your world? You know what I mean?
Right.
But let's see, then comes in the manifestation of existence, the manifestation of us, of me, of Scotty, of me in a physical body. And that's what's called an outstroke of Brahma's consciousness, an outstroke of one of his meditations, a thought, basically. And so that's the tree of existence, of this existence, and we're acorns on that tree. So our karma, if you will, then, which creates our mind, creates our world, really, are parallel universes, really. And they interface so seamlessly because we're born of the same tree. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's totally cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now here's the thing. We can say more with it. It's also very, very interesting. And hopefully, you've listened to some of the previous podcasts where we talk about the Brahma Sutras and all these different lectures, talks that we've given. Without the relative, there is no Brahman. Brahman, isn't that a beautiful verse? Brahman is known from the Upanishads alone. It doesn't even exist without the Upanishads, really. It doesn't even exist without the relative. And what births the relative? We do, the Atman. And why are all of our different relative prapanchams so, universes so parallel, so seamlessly integrated? Because it's all born out of the same tree. And so then, this is really beautiful. We have Shiva. And I talked about in previous podcasts how Shiva is, he who has no name. It's like no opinion, no perspective, pure isness, pure consciousness, fully conscious of everything right now, kind of like a backdrop beyond the perceivable universe. It's like if this was all just a movie screen, then what lies behind the movie screen is the silent witness that is Shiva, and Shiva is the knower. And the pillow, your computer screen, all of that is the known. But there's a process of knowing. And what's that about? The process of knowing is called the Devata value. And Shiva Parvati, they go together. We don't have a good word for that really in English. Wife, consort, counterpart. Shiva is the pure absolute. Parvati is the goddess that is the process of knowing. And that's the Devata value. And then we have the Chandas value, the known, the object, the pillow or the computer screen itself. But now, wait a minute, that computer screen, that pillow, that's pure Atma, that's pure consciousness, that's pure isness, that is the totality, that is Brahman. So why do we see a pillow? Well, that's right, we call that the hiding value. Within Chandas is that quality of hiding. So though we can see the totality of the pillow in Brahman consciousness, you see that pillow is the totality. That pillow is God. That pillow is Shiva. That pillow is Brahman. That pillow is everything. On the physical level, so much is on that level, everything is hidden and it's just a pillow and everything else is hidden. So what determines what is hidden with respect to the pillow, with respect to the computer screen, with respect to this table, this room, the view outside as far as you can see, everything. What determines what's hidden? It's the Devata value, it's the goddess. So you could say then that Shiva is the the knower, the feel of pure consciousness, pure isness. No opinion, no bias, just pure knowingness. And Parvati is all of this. Parvati birth, all of this. It's compared to a house. Shiva is like the notion of a house, the idea of a house, the value of a house, the wholeness value of the house. But when you look at the walls, the floor, the furniture, everything in the house, that's all Parvati. And all those things born of that process, the knower, the process of knowing, and then they have the chandas value, the thingness, if you will, value, the materialization, the manifestation. You know, when I was a kid, I remember this, and I was a little kid, but, you know, kids have strange thoughts, probably pretty common, but I remember one thought I used to have, my parents are so busy, everybody's so busy, all this stuff is going on, busy. But I remember like wondering, you know, all these people, their friends, everybody, all these people are so busy, but do they even really know what they're busy about? What's going on here? What's really going on? What is this about? It's very, I guess, from the Western perspective, you'd call it a philosophical perspective. But as the cobwebs of consciousness clear, it's no longer really a philosophical perspective, but it's like expanded physics, a deeper insight into just the nature of existence, what it is. You've got Shiva and you've got Parvati. But now there's a dynamism there, isn't there? There's a whole dynamic, a whole liveliness, the full range of all existence and its lively quality. That one thing that includes the absolute, the Shiva value, the relative, everything, and the dynamism within that whole field. And that dynamism, that's Vishnu. And the correlate to Vishnu is Mahalakshmi, Mahalakshmi. And so Mahalakshmi is like the fullness value of the dynamism. So the liveliness, Mahalakshmi, the value of Mahalakshmi in nature can be likened to just a beautiful spring day when all the plants are green and the flowers are just exquisite and everything's just full. And its full dynamic value of life. And then there's one other component to it, though, isn't there? We have Lakshmi, we have Parvati, and then we also have the third component, the Holy Trinity, if you will, Sarasvati, who correlates with Brahma, the creator. Sarasvati is intelligence. Sarasvati is purpose, direction, movement in a direction. You can almost even say like with a goal. You could say. Got a phone call coming in. Let me get rid of it here. Okay. And so those things together, that's what's going on. That's what's going on here. And so what is that direction? What is that purpose? Well, you can view it from different angles, can't you? From one perspective, you could say it's expansion of happiness, the exploration of the grandeur of the true nature of existence. From another perspective, you could say there's no purpose, it just is. That's just the nature of existence. From another perspective, you could say the expansion of love, harmony, beauty. But see, those are all just different perspectives. And there are an infinite number of different perspectives. But they talk about bliss and what bliss is. And bliss is coming to that level of appreciation of existence's true nature, which is infinite harmony, infinite coherence, infinite wisdom, infinite insight. And that makes life full. It makes life exquisite. And it's just a matter of understanding the nature of life. Understanding life is the fulfillment of life. Understanding, not overstanding. Understanding. Humility is built right into the word. Just the exquisite beauty of the nature of life. So before we close today, I wanted to talk a little bit. For some reason, well, once in a while, I like tapping into current events, just what's going on in the world. And it's just so really ridiculous right now, as you all know. Anybody who watches the news just knows just how crazy it is. But I think we need to have some finger on the pulse of that whole thing. But I don't know what gives me perspective on it. The perspective that I like to embrace with respect to it, I guess. The best way of looking at it is, for me, it's the children. Like, for example, just take for an example, Russia, Ukraine, the war, or you could do Israel, Hamas, whatever, any war. How can we let that happen? Why do people do that? It's because they're not thinking of the children. I mean, these poor, innocent, beautiful, sweet, exquisite, wonderful children. And look what war does. How can we do that to our children? How can anybody do that to our children? And so, okay, there's a war going on. What side should we take? I'll tell you what side we should take. We should take the side of the children. And what does that mean? How can we most quickly put an end to the fighting, to the war, and the horrible effect it has on these poor, innocent, precious children? So how do we do that? Well, it was Napoleon. I actually put this in my notes, in the podcast notes for today. It was Napoleon that said, really, money is the most essential component of making war. He said something along those lines, but the meaning is there. And so instead of giving money to the side that you pick so they can build more bombs and pay more military to create more war, and understandably, at times you have to do some of that just to defend yourself. But most of the emphasis should be on defunding the wars. And how do you do that? You do it how you can, through sanctions, closing bank accounts, and do whatever you have to do to stop the war. And that should be our number one goal. That should be our number one goal. If it wasn't for all the wars, everybody on the whole planet right now could have been living like multimillionaires. So I made a little list on my notes, the podcast. You can go through them. And I think we do well to look at that list and try to be reflective and insightful and informed. You know, you talk to people about politics, for example, and they have very firm opinions, and you ask them about details and they are uninformed, or the information they get is really just spin. I mean, there's so much spin out there. Why is there spin? Because whoever side a politician is on, they want to spin the situation however they can to convince you to support them. It's not about truth. What's truth got to do with that? So before you form an opinion on what we can do in this situation to take care of our children, we have to be informed. It's no time to be impulsive. It's no time to be swayed by a group of people thinking a certain way, you know. But when the world has, like I've talked about in previous podcasts, the world is like a fishbowl and the water is polluted and the fish are suffering. The way, and how's that map on the people? The way people think, it's not clear, it's twisted. It's all about hatred and anger and taking sides and fighting and greed and racism and judgment and allegiance to a, what do they call it, Scotty? A narrative, yeah. And we're not thinking right. And because of that, we're not feeling right. Feelings of hatred, anger, judgment, getting even, what have you. And really, this is what Mount Soma is all about. It's what are our priorities? Like Nikola Tesla said, there's unlimited positive energies within the earth itself. All we need to do is tap into that. Mother Earth. But what that means is we're not talking New Age la-la here. We're talking very sophisticated Vedic technology. It's all mapped out in the Veda how to do it. But you see, the trouble we've had is that so much of what's taken is spirituality, Hinduism, Vedic. The essence of Hinduism is the Veda. But the tangents that have gone off, some of them are just, they're not really good. I remember 40 years ago, going to India and going to see an Ayurvedic doctor and taking the herbs, there was a life-threatening situation. They'd bring back the herbs and they'd be infested with amoebas or what have you. That's gotten cleaned up to a great extent, at least. And certainly there are a number of sources now where you can get the real deal. But the problem then is that we've seen so much, craziness, that if we're not careful, we throw out the baby with the bathwater, or we just turn deep Vedic knowledge into something we do on Sundays because it's family tradition. And yeah, we believe in God. And so, but I'm talking about really taking that technology and honoring it. It's not fanaticism, it's insight and knowledge. It's not fanaticism to build a cell phone properly. It's science. And so that's what Mount Soma is about. There are the technologies, how to build a generator that purifies global consciousness. One generator for each continent is supposed to be enough. And how many generators are out there? Zero. I mean, yeah, there are groups that are meditating together, praying together. That's all good. Great seers and saints in caves in the Himalayas, and that's all great. But it's obviously not enough. But here we have a technology. Just build this. Just build it. And okay, we got this continent taken care of. Build 6 of them. The whole world is taken care of. But you probably wouldn't even need to build all 6. Because if this continent is straightened out, the United States of America, Canada, you have another one in Europe, Asia. It's even just the United States, if we could straighten that out. And that's my life. I'm dedicated to it. Price of one small bomb would be enough to build what we need to straighten the whole mess out. But people don't do it. It goes right back to that question I had when I was a little kid. All these people are so busy doing this. But do they really get what life is really about? What it really is? All right, Scotty, if there's nothing else, I think that's all I have to say.
That was a lot.
All right, good enough?
Good.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Scotty, and y'all take care, and we'll talk